Hello Summoners and welcome back to another ProGuides video. My name is Nathaning and we'll be talking about our predictions for the worst champions going into patch 12.2. It can be difficult to really understand how different buffs and nerfs are going to affect the meta. Sometimes a seemingly huge nerf just brings a god tier champion down to the S tier, and they're still plenty OP. Other times what seems like a minor 2 AD base reduction just causes a champion to drop off the rift. So we're here to steer you away from what we think are going to be the worst champions in each role this patch. We'll start things out in the top lane with Renekton. He's just an absolute flop of a champion at the moment. Back when he was strong, Renekton was a super oppressive laner, with the ability to stomp every other melee champion in the role. Whether it was via kills or starving his opponent of farm, he built a massive lead, which kind of just helped him snowball into the mid game and steamroll over fights. With this kit being incredibly easy to play, you can often get results pretty consistently, so he was naturally just a staple pick in pro play. Obviously, a guaranteed winning lane is something that every team is going to want to draft. He was nerfed again and again, to the point that Renekton is pretty meh in the early game. And that's definitely a problem when you consider how insanely OP some of the other meta top laners are right now. What's the point of picking a champion that just has an okay laning phase and no scaling, when you can have top lane titans like Camille, Riven, and Yone that completely scale into absolute 1v9 machines if you don't completely shut them out? Avoiding the champions on this list is a good starting point to rank up, but if you're actually serious about climbing, you should check out ProGuides.com. We have courses from all your favorite streamers and pros like CoreJJ, Aframu, and Xmithy to really help you understand how to play a role. And if you want a more personalized experience, we have coaches available 24/7 to really help you become the best. Our coaches are top tier players that have now spent years climbing the solo queue ladder to get where they are now, and they're ready to share everything that they've learned with you. There's no better time than now to sign up because we're running a pretty awesome deal. Just use the discount code WINTER when you check out for 20% off your sub. Now let's get back on topic, shall we? The other top lane to stay away from is Rumble. After his mini rework, Rumble was turned into a multi-role superstar of a champion. He could literally carry from all 5 roles, even support. He was just way overtuned and could overpower any matchup with his insane damage. But now things have changed quite a bit and he's only good as a mid laner. So if he's so good in mid, why does he struggle so much in the other solo lane? The mid lane champ pool is a lot different than top lane. Rumble is good at mitigating the burst damage that assassins do while trading back on them with a lot more damage that they do to him. When he's up against control mages, rather than looking to trade, you just focus on shoving in the lane and going for a roam. But in the top lane, the bruisers that are generally played are very good at extended fights and can easily win trades once your spells are on cooldown. Since top lane is a lot longer than the mid lane, you're often in a spot where your opponent can just run you down. So if they ever get a freeze on you, you can just end up being zoned from farm and even pushed out of XP range. Taking things into the jungle, the first champion that we want to keep you away from is Gragas. He's just way too low in all departments. When it comes to ganking, other early game champions have him beat. He clears too slow and his ganks themselves aren't that great. Sure, he has his body slam flash combo, but that's only when flash is actually available. Other junglers like Shinzao or Rek'Sai can apply pressure full time. He also isn't a very great duelist, so you pretty much never want to be in a matchup where you're gonna have to fight for scuttle crabs. And it's not just scuttle crab that you have to worry about giving up. Any strong early game jungler can pretty much just waltz into your jungle and take whatever camps that they want. It's not like you can just punish them if they catch you out. And you're gonna have to rely on your team, but come on, it's solo queue. For the most part, can you really rely on your team? His scaling is also atrocious. If you want to play him as a tanky disruptor, why don't you just lock in Zac, Skarner, or Nunu instead? There's just no upside to Gragas at all until we see some huge buffs. The other jungler that we have for you today is Pantheon. Pantheon in any role is a super feast or famine pick. If he doesn't really do well early, he's pretty useless going into the later stages of the game. In a solo lane, this is fine. He's a super strong lane bully, so he can go ahead and consistently find a lead and snowball hard. But as a jungler, he suffers from his super slow clear speed, and clearing slow means that you're not going to have much presence on the map and will very rarely pick up the kills that you need to get that snowball rolling. And even if he does pick up some early kills, being in the jungle means that he's not going to have the same level lead that he would if you're going to be playing him in a solo lane. Remember, levels mean a lot, especially for a caster that gets most of their damage from their spells. Next up, let's look at the mid lane, starting out with Ryze. Out of all the champions in this role, he is by far the worst. While mages as a whole are very strong thanks to how OP their item choices are at the moment, Ryze is one of the few exceptions. He's just so weak early that he gets bullied by any other champion in that role. By picking him, you're either letting an assassin snowball hard against you, or giving a better mage a free lane to scale in. I promise there's no one that wants an enemy Victor to safely reach 2 items at the same time as an allied Ryze. The only argument I see that people raise for Ryze is that he has a good gank setup for a jungler, but there's 2 issues with that. 1, you can't bank on your entire solo queue game on a random jungler coming to your lane. Maybe you're dueling with a jungler and you know that you'll get your lane camped. Then why waste such a lead on Ryze? Other mages like Vex and Annie also have CC and come online much quicker. The other mid laner that you shouldn't be playing is Lucian. In a vacuum, Lucian isn't all that bad. In fact, he's probably one of the best picks for the mid lane if it was purely about 1v1ing your opponent. But League is a team game, and Lucian requires a lot of resources to be able to do what he wants. Plus, because he's all damage and no utility, if you fall behind, you're gonna be useless. His trading pattern involves shoving in the wave and constantly dashing in, both of which leaves him very vulnerable to jungle ganks. The only counter to being cammed is to have your jungler constantly nearby, but like with Ryze, you just can't really rely on your jungler babysitting you to make your champion viable. All it takes is a single gank from the enemy jungler to really relieve the pressure for the mid laner, and then you lose all that momentum and start losing the lane. Then, once you're behind, the game is basically over. If you even think about picking up Lucian, just look at Ukshin instead. He's infinitely better as a solo lane marksman. Moving things down to the bot lane, we'll lead off with Aphelios. It pains me to say this and put Aphelios on this list because he's one of my favorite champions in the game, but he's just so bad right now. He sits at barely just above a 45% win rate in Plat Plus, and considering that he's generally always done better in higher elos, that's saying something. He suffers from the same thing as Ryze does. He should be somewhat weak early, with super hard scaling, but at the moment he's just completely outclassed at all points in the game. He's not only somewhat weak early, he's downright terrible, losing lane to every other ADC in the game. His scaling is okay, but okay doesn't cut it when you're competing with super strong hypercarries like Jinx, Vayne, Twitch, and Kog'Maw. On top of being objectively weak, he's just also harder to play than those champions. There's just no reason I could think of to lock him in, aside from the fact that he might be pretty fun to play. The other marksman that you want to avoid is Varus. He may not be nearly as bad as Aphelios, but he's another pick that you just can't really justify using in the current meta. Even after his last couple of buffs, he falls short in all departments. He's a lot like Renekton of the ADCs. The way that he used to work was being a super strong early game champion, able to hard bully any 2v2 matchup. He'd ramp up a big lead fast and then just build lethality, so that way he could just provide a press poke around objectives. The issue with that playstyle is it's impossible to balance. If it's too good, it's too good. He's poking from across the screen, so there's no real way to deal with it. The only real way to make him not oppressive is to make him so bad that it's not viable. Honestly, I'm surprised that Varus wasn't one of the champions that Ryze considered for the VGU this time around. He needs some major rework to put him into a spot where he's both viable and healthy for the game. And on that note, I have today's question of the day. What champion from Bride's list did you pick for the VGU and why? I actually went with Shyvana because the description for her sounded really dope. Honestly, I should have chosen Trundle though because I think he needs a rework. That champion just does whatever he wants. Anyway, let me know your answers in the comments down below. Now for our supports, the first champion that you should be locking in pretty much never is Seraphine. When Seraphine first came out, she was by far the best champion for really inflating your elo as a support main. A lot of support players got a solid tier or 2 higher than they deserved in Season 11. But now she's the worst enchanter in the game. Enchanters are all about enabling their carries to, well, carry. And Seraphine is subpar at all stages of the game when compared to her healing and shielding peers. Nami and Karma have her beat hard when it comes to giving early pressure in lane, while scaling picks like Sona, Zillion, and Lulu are just way more useful in 5v5s later on into the game. It's a bit ironic, everybody said Seraphine was Sona 2.0, and was just making Sona entirely obsolete, but at the moment the exact opposite is true. There's simply no reason to ever lock in Seraphine when Sona does the exact same thing, but way better. The only way that Seraphine is actually a viable pick is if you put her in a role where she's the one farming. Mid is decent, but being the bot lane carry is by far her best role, so if you really want to pick her, play her there. Finishing off our list, we have Trundle. He was previously a super OP support pick, but that was simply due to the meta at the time. Trundle's entire support identity is countering all-in champions. When you're up against a beefy support like Leona or Nautilus, you just ult them to both bolster up your defenses and make them easy for your carry to shred through. Meanwhile, you pillar off their ADC to prevent any follow-up on the engage, so you and your carry can easily kill their support. But the problem is, all-in supports aren't really in the meta right now. The majority of supports at the moment are enchanters, which Trundle is entirely useless against. They easily kite you so you can never actually do anything in the lane. By locking them in, you're basically just making your ADC 1v2 the lane. This is obviously never a good thing, but is especially punishing in the current hypercarry meta. Your ADC will just end up an item behind a hypercarry that likely also has an enchanter buffing up their DPS even further. Then you'll get to the post-game screen and wonder why your carry did so much less damage than the enemies. And that about wraps things up for our worst 10 champions on patch 12.2. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure you sub so you never miss out on our meta guides and you're always in the loop on what the best picks are. Remember, let us know your vote for the next VGU down in the comments below. Oh yeah, one last thing, don't forget to check out our Discord in the description box below where you can go ahead and discuss the league further or just hang out and be a part of the community. I can't wait to see you guys back in the next video, but until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and have a wonderful day. Peace.